Hello, my friends. It's Ranger Russ from the Meigs Nature Center. And today we have a very special program. We're going to be talking about all this stuff in front of me. Before we get to that, I want to let everyone know we'll continue to do these programs Tuesday through Friday at 11 o'clock. Now, Christmas Eve, I'm going to be taking off. So no program Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. But look for a special program on New Year's Day. We're going to do, instead of a first day hike, we'll do a first day virtual hike. So look for that coming up New Year's Day. Again, you can watch these programs live on Facebook. If you miss the program live, you can see it on our YouTube channel. The Meigs Point Nature Center has its own YouTube channel, so go there. You can also see these programs on our website, meigspointnaturecenter.org. Visit the Virtual Learning Center and get additional educational content along with your video that you can watch. Now, what we're talking about today is how long it takes these things to decompose or biodegrade in our environment. And I have lots of different things. If you remember, I did do a recycling program a little while back. In that program, we talked about what can be recycled and what cannot be recycled. Now we're just going to talk about how long these things last in the environment. Some of them I have a difference between marine environment and a land environment, which means if it's dumped in the ocean or dumped into a landfill. So we'll talk about the differences as we go along. But first, let's define biodegrade. So biodegrade means how long it takes something to break down through the process of another living organism. So either bacteria or a fungus or something growing on it and helping to break it down, helping to disintegrate it. Okay, we're getting from an object to powder, just it's gone. So how long that takes. Another thing you can talk about is decomposing, and that's something for decay or rot. There are some things that don't really biodegrade, like an aluminum can. It's going to rust. It's going to oxidize. So that's a chemical process, or not necessarily a chemical process, but that is a process where this is going to break down and pretty much just disappear. Okay? So I want to thank everybody who's watching, and remember, put up where you're messaging from, and we'll just keep on going. If you have any questions at any time, because I'm going to be asking you how long you think these things last, so you can let me know what you think. So I don't know where to start. I've got a lot of trash in front of me, but let's start with one of the most common items, the plastic bottle. Okay? So how long do you think it takes a plastic bottle to break down or biodegrade in the environment? I have lots of different ones we can look at. Let's give you a second to see. Morrisville, North Carolina, Wallingford. Very cool. All right, any guesses on a plastic bottle? How long it takes a plastic bottle to break down in the environment? Let me look on my list here. I see a guess of 1 year. So the real answer is kind of unknown, and it depends on the type of plastic, but it could take 1,000 to 1,000,000 years for this to break down. And it's the same in marine versus a landfill. Okay? They will corrode and break down, but some of the plastics don't break down. Okay? So we're going to say 1,000 years, both on land and in the water. All right. We'll toss that in our recycling bin and keep going. Let's do the rubber boot, because this is the biggest one in front of me. Okay, a rubber boot. Any guesses how long it takes a rubber boot to biodegrade in the environment? All right. This looks like a pretty nice conditioned boot. I think I found this washed up on the beach though. I had another one that had washed up on the beach, but it was really gross. This one is much cleaner. I threw the other one away. You can't recycle these either. All right, I have a guess of never. We're going to look at our list. So for this one also, landfill versus marine environment are going to be the same amount of time. It's 50 to 80 years. Now, that does not seem like a very long time, does it? This is a lot of material, but it's a different type of material, okay? So the type of material makes a big difference whether it's going to break down or how long it's going to take for it to break down. So we're going to toss that over there. Let's do the big nemesis. Now, most places have eliminated styrofoam cups, which is fantastic, right? Some of the things they replaced it with are not the best, but at least we don't have styrofoam cups anymore because they're pretty bad. So do we have any guesses for the styrofoam cup? How long this one takes? My little dangly here is bouncing around. All right, this one is going to be different between a marine environment versus a landfill. And let's talk about why it's going to be different for a little bit while you guess how long this takes. A marine environment really has to be an anaerobic environment. There's no oxygen getting to it. So there are different types of things that are going to break something down in a marine environment versus in a landfill. A landfill has more aerobic bacteria. There's more things that can break it down. Okay? I'm not sure if that never is for the styrofoam cup or the boot. Forever like a Twinkie. I like that. All right. So again, in a landfill, there's more oxygen that can get in. Now, it also depends on how tightly things are packed. So when we say a landfill, if they bundle everything together and really compress it, it's going to take a lot longer for it to biodegrade. If there's oxygen getting to it, it's a shorter amount of time. So those of you that have compost piles, you know, you just pile your stuff on and pack it down, it's going to take forever. You'll be able to dig through it and identify a banana peel or an orange peel. If you turn it over, get it some oxygen, get it some air, it's going to break down faster. And that's because it's biodegrading. You need oxygen for it to biodegrade. All right, so a landfill for a styrofoam cup, just a simple styrofoam cup, 100 years. They break down faster in the ocean. It's only 50 years, half the lifespan if it's in the ocean. The concern that we have, though, is what is it breaking down to in the ocean? This is something that we didn't really think about years ago, and now we're thinking, wow, there's microplastics and microfoams and all this stuff floating around in the ocean. Not very good. So they should probably still go into a landfill rather than the ocean. So don't think that dumping things in the ocean is going to be the solution to our pollution problems. All right, let's move on. Plastic food container. So actually here we go. Plastic food container. We talked about this in recycling, whether you can recycle it or not. And you got to look at the little number, which is kind of annoying. Because sometimes the numbers are really small and you think just because it has that little arrow triangle, it can be recycled, but that's not necessarily true. So after I did that program, I did hear there was an executive on the radio that used to promote, and he was the guy that came up with that, the arrows going in the triangle, the recycling symbol, and putting the number in it. When they first started doing that, it meant nothing. They were just trying to convince people that things could be recycled. That blew my mind. He admitted it. He's like, yeah, we did it. I feel really bad. But that's what they did back in the day. All right, so how long does it take for this plastic food container to biodegrade or disintegrate? It's going to be the same for a landfill or a marine environment. And it's a really long time. So this is 1,000 years, okay? Same as the bottle. 1,000 years for this to break down. But again, what it's breaking down into, maybe microplastics, still can get into fish. Not a good thing. All right, let's move on. What else do we have here? A newspaper. All right, this shouldn't take long, right? A newspaper. All right, this is one of those things, though. When they take these newspapers and they bundle them together, if that gets wet and just dumped into a land, oh, we can't recycle it now because it's all wet, and they dump it, it's going to take a really long time for it to break down. If this is just laying out on your yard, it's going to be a lot faster. It's going to break down a bit quicker. Susan says this is depressing. It is depressing. But it's important that we know the things that we produce. All right, so a newspaper. In a landfill, 4 weeks. Pretty quick, right? In a marine environment, 6 weeks. A bit longer. Again, this needs oxygen. This needs to break down in an oxygenated environment. It'll break down faster. And by the way, how about just a simple, this is not on my list, but how about just a piece of paper? You think, oh, it's got to be shorter, right? It is. This is only 1 to 2 weeks. Simple piece of paper, 1 to 2 weeks. But again, bundled up, this is the thing I found out. You bundle this up, it could take 10 years for a big bundle of paper to break down. So, and that's, industrial bundles, those giant bales that they make of paper, takes years for this to break down. But 1 to 2 weeks if it's all by itself. All right, what else do we have? We've got some cans here. So we've got a tin can and an aluminum can. Most kids don't recognize tin cans anymore. I grew up eating out of tin cans. Every meal had something in a tin can, right? But tin can versus aluminum can. So first we'll do the tin can. This breaks down faster in a marine environment, and I bet you can guess why. There's salt in a marine environment, which increases oxidization, which means this is going to break down in only 50 years. In a landfill, this is going to be 100 years. Okay? So, what about the ink on the paper and the chemicals? So we're just talking about the item itself being disintegrated. What it's being disintegrated into, that ink, is becoming liquefied or returning back to its original state, which in some cases is toxic. And there are bits of all of these things that remain toxic. But generally, when you talk about biodegrading, you're talking about taking something, disintegrating it into nothing, and theoretically not toxic anymore. But when we talked about those microplastics, we don't know how toxic they are. So again, 100 years in a landfill, 50 years in a marine environment. And the aluminum can, unfortunately, is going to be the same. Aluminum doesn't oxidize quite the same as tin. So it's going to take this 200 years in the ocean or 200 years in a landfill. So aluminum lasts longer. That's why they use it. It can be made thinner and be just as strong as a tin can, and it lasts a lot longer. So that's why they use aluminum cans. Now, one thing that's happening, you can hear the rocks in there. This is a game that we bring to fairs. I've brought it to school fairs, the Guilford Fair. Organizations will invite us in and to talk about recycling. We set this up at the Hammonasset Festival. I want to give a big shout out to the Friends of Hammonasset because they helped add to this quite a bit. But we would have this little card, and the can has a little number on it, and then you guess how long it lasts, and then you can turn it over and see the answers. So I do not have all of these things memorized. I have a few of them memorized, but some of them not so much. All right, the Mylar balloon. I keep finding these everywhere. It's really depressing. Because they, you fill them with helium, they float off into the air. they can get miles away from the place that they were released. Very hard to contain them once they're floating through the atmosphere. So these things are really pretty nasty. Also, animals will like to eat them, or I don't know. This is just a pretty bad thing. I don't even know what this one says. Class of 2020. So yeah, we got this one, obviously, this year. Here we go, class of 2020. Let's celebrate by polluting the environment and release balloons. Okay, so how long does it take a Mylar balloon? It's the same in a landfill as it is in the ocean. 1,000 years. Now, these, when it says 1,000 years, one of the research studies that I did, they only calculated it for 1,000 years. So some of them are 1,000 plus years. And we'll see 1,000 plus years ones coming up. But they calculated it for 0 to 1,000 years. And if it was beyond 1,000, they just called it 1,000. Because they figured nobody's going to be around past that. At least we're not. All right, so there's our Mylar balloon, 1,000 years. Celebrate your graduation by putting something in the environment for 1,000 years. Think of it that way. You really don't want to be doing that, do you? All right, we've got a diaper. This is not a used diaper. This is brand new. Thankfully. And this is a biodegradable diaper. So they make these so that they biodegrade faster. So what does that mean? That it can biodegrade? It means that the span is much shorter than a normal diaper. And for this, it's going to be the same in a landfill or the ocean. These will last 1 year. Just 1 year in a landfill or in the ocean. Not terrible, right? But think about it. If this is floating around in the ocean, an animal comes along and says, wow, that looks like it might be edible. Animals don't always know, and they're going to try and eat it. And eating a diaper is not going to be a good thing. All of those moisture absorbers that they have inside there, they've got these little Velcro-y things. This is not going to be good. So even a year, we need to keep these contained. So landfill, much better than floating around in the ocean. All right, what are we going to do now? Let's do a rubber tire. All right, here we have a chunk of a rubber tire because I don't carry rubber tire around to schools when I do this program. There's a piece of a rubber tire that actually washed up on our beach. I found this on the beach. I thought it was pretty disgusting when I found it, and it still is kind of gross. But let's talk about this. Let's see if we have any questions. All right. Oh, sharing to outdoors in Connecticut. That's cool. So, tire. How long do you think a tire lasts? Remember the rubber boot? Didn't last really long. So this study actually, where I found this was sort of an indeterminate time. So what they said for the tire, it's the same in the landfill as in the ocean, 10,000 plus years. So depending on the study that you find, some of them actually do say forever. But if they don't really know, a lot of times they just cut it off. 10,000 plus years. More than 10,000 years. Wow. 10,000 years for a tire. That's a long time. That one's still kind of sticky. All right, let's do, everybody knows this one. The plastic bag. Now, I do have a paper bag. Let's do the paper bag first. I only have this for landfill. I don't have it for in the ocean. I'm going to guess that it's probably going to last a little bit longer in the ocean because this really biodegrades faster with some aerobic or oxygen using microbes. They're going to make this faster. So a paper bag, 1 month. So Good, right? 1 month for a paper bag. And it is a renewable resource. We can plant more trees, and that's what these are made of. So I think a paper bag is a good alternative. When Connecticut was pushing the bag ban, the plastic bag ban, I heard a lot of people that were for plastic bags saying, well, you know, a paper bag is no better. It takes more carbon to produce it, etc., etc. I really don't see an argument for a plastic bag over a paper bag. Okay. But what's best? A reusable bag. I should have a reusable bag around here somewhere. I've got them all over the place. I have reusable bags. So here at work, there are some in my office probably from carrying things up here. I have them in both the Nature Center vehicles. I have them in my personal vehicles. I bring them in the house. They run through the wash. They're in the house. I use them for other things besides just grocery shopping. I'll carry, if I have a bundle of stuff that needs to go home or come back to work, I use those reusable bags everywhere. So that is a great option. Now, some of the reusable bags don't last very long in the environment. Some of them don't last very long being used. And some of them don't last very long if you wash them. And I do wash my bags. So they do break down a bit quicker. But it's a much better alternative because you get a lot of uses out of it. I mean, they still last more than a year for a good one, even if you are washing it. Okay, Steve asks if it's the same if it's dirty. I'm not sure which thing you're talking about. So biodegrading and decomposing, generally, it's not going to change if it's clean or dirty. Recycling, it needs to be clean because the process that they do doesn't always clean out the items. Like glass bottles, the way they recycle those, they can have stuff inside of them. Tin cans, they ask you to rinse it out. I don't think that it's because of the recycling process. I think it's because of the process getting it to the recycling. They don't want it leaving sugar water everywhere that it goes. It becomes sticky and messy. So Cheryl has used reusable bags since the 1970s. How awesome is that? So there is someone that's far ahead of their time because I don't think I heard of reusable bags. Now, I was a kid in the 70s, but I don't even think I heard of reusable bags in the 70s. How awesome is that? Good for you, Cheryl. All right, the diaper. Steve is asking about the diaper, and it's probably, this is the gross part, diapers probably break down faster if they're used and dirty because they're going to attract more microbes. It's going to provide moisture and food for those microbes and bacteria. So I would guess that a diaper breaks down quicker if it is used versus brand new like that one. All right, so the plastic grocery bag. We said the other one, paper bag, was a month. So it also depends on the size. That's a regular grocery type bag. There are smaller lunch bag, paper lunch bags. Going to be a little bit quicker than a month. But the plastic bag. This is made of oil. This is a petroleum product. So all the oil that we're drilling, if we can get away from this, then we don't need to drill as much oil, right? So drilling oil is a lot harder on the environment than cutting down trees. So, although cutting down trees is pretty hard, but you can replant the trees. You're not going to get that oil back, not unless you're going to be around in a few million years. All right, so these last, it's going to be the same in the ocean as it is in a landfill. 1,000 years floating around in the ocean. Think about that. Just buried up in the ground for 1,000 years. If you buried one of these in your garden, your great-great-grandkids would come to plant something in the garden if they're still living in their house, and they're going to dig it up. All right? Think that, to me, just stinks. To think that something that I carried my groceries home and then buried it or whatever I did with it, and my great, how many greats? 1,000? years. That's a lot of greats are going to find it. Children are going to find it. So, not very cool there. All right, let's do the glass bottle. Now, glass bottles have been used for a very, very long time, and they were recycled pretty much from the beginning. Glass was hard to make in the beginning, so when it broke, they wanted to reuse it. They wanted to recycle it. So glass was a recyclable material going pretty far back, okay? Let's say almost in the beginning of making glass. Now, these are going to be the same in a landfill or in the ocean. And what happens to these, they're not really breaking down. This is not biodegrading. There are no bacteria or anything that are helping to break this down. The way this disintegrates, because it doesn't decompose either, it doesn't rot, this is going to disintegrate through a mechanical method. That's the only way it's going to break down. So it has to rub against things. It has to be worn down. You know, they break pretty easily in a landfill, but once it's broken, it's in the landfill and there's not a lot of moving. So it's going to take a very long time. Million years is what they say for glass bottles. They do not break down on their own. They need to be worn down. So on a beach, you know, that's how you get sea glass. Sea glass is pretty and it's fun to find. But if you think about it, it could have been hundreds of years old. That glass could have been dumped in the ocean or broken on that beach 100 years ago. All right. Question. Love sea glass, but sucks to step on sharp on the beach. Yes. I hate it when I see smashed bottles in the rocks. People usually, not out on the sandy beach usually, but I find them out on our beach on the rocky shore. I don't know what it is. People enjoy breaking glass. But millions of years. All right, let's do monofilament fishing line. This is pretty stinky. Yes, there are not a lot of sea glass at Hammonasset. I have found a few pieces, but I'm here all the time, so I have a better chance of finding it. But yes, it's not common here. And that's because we've been a state park for a very long time, and it was private before that. This was never really a big public place before that. All right, so monofilament fishing line. It's a useful thing for fishermen. You know, we're not going to be catching fish if we don't have that monofilament line, but it lasts a long time. This actually breaks down faster in the ocean than in a landfill. So, what are our guesses for this? See, way too much fishing line. Yes, you really do. You see a lot of fishing line around. So let's just pause for a second, because I don't want to suggest that fishermen are being careless or inconsiderate when you find their fishing line. I know that happens. I know that there are fishermen that they get a tangle, they cut it, they just leave the knot there. But there are plenty of fishermen out there that are very conscientious about it and still lose line. And they may lose a lot of line. It doesn't take a lot of line to get a knot this large. So let's just say, for the sake of argument and to give people the benefit of the doubt in this holiday season, that there aren't people out there just leaving fishing line around. But if you find it, please pick it up, because it lasts a long time. This lasts 600 years in the ocean. So your fishing line, you know, you hook a rock or something, you're trying to get it in, your line breaks. That happens. Now that line is there, that's going to be out there in the ocean for 600 years. When it comes loose, which the hooks are going to rust, they're going to break loose, the line is going to tangle, it's going to wash up in a ball like this. On the beach, it's going to be there 800 years. So once this line is tangled and up on the beach, a bird picks it up and carries it back to its nest, and uses it to build its nest, 800 years later, that nest is still you're still going to be able to see this. You won't be able to tell it was in a nest, but 600 in the ocean, 800 years on land. All right. Oh, here we go. Well, let's do a cardboard box. Okay, corrugated cardboard. All right, that's the one with all the little wavies inside. A layer on the outside, a layer on the inside, and the wavies on the inside. Corrugated box. How long do you think? And I don't have this for the ocean. I don't know where all this sand came from. One of my trash items is dropping sand. All right. Box. In a landfill. And again, this is going to be something that when we recycle it, we press it all together. And it's going to take much longer to biodegrade. I see a question from my cousin. Dead fish. Yes, we can talk about the dead fish. Let's just do this and then we'll talk about dead fish. Oh, wait. More questions. Let's take a second, do some questions. Walton found a bird hanging from fishing line. Hanging by the neck from fishing line, backyard, probably wanted it for a nest. Very, very sad. We've had that happen here. I found a blue jay. Actually, that wasn't fishing line. That was a kite string hanging upside down. Another question. Fishing line tangles on everything and can catch poor animals. Yes, absolutely. A crab. Rescued a crab past summer. Very good. At least you saved a crab. All right, so the corrugated cardboard box lasts 2 months. Not a really long time. Again, if it's all compressed in a big bundle, it's going to last longer. But 2 months in a landfill. I don't have the number in a marine environment for this. So now we're going to talk about the cartons. These are coated. Now, I used to think they were coated with wax. They're actually, if you watch the other program, I learned that they're coated with a plastic. But how long do you think it takes this to last? Now, I have heard a lot about the fish die-offs. And I've been talking about them as I have found them. I think I had 3 programs where I found dead fish washed up on the beach. So one of the fisheries biologists for DEEP has suggested, and I really think that he's on point, and actually the sound keeper from New Haven, and I'm blanking on his name right now, Luce. Anyway, he agrees with the theory. This was a really good year for shad or Manhattan, or there are lots of names for them. Bunker. This was a great year for them. We've reduced the numbers of fish that can be taken for the past few years. Bill Lucy, thank you, Sue. For the past few years, in 2017, they reduced the number drastically. I think they cut it by 40%. And then this year, they cut it another 10%. So that 2017 cut, we could be seeing the increase from that. Also, natural populations are going to cycle. They're going to go up and down. So with the combination of the reduced numbers that people can take and hopefully an upswing in their population naturally, we're seeing a lot more menhaden here than we have in many, many years. So great sign. One of the things that goes along with that, though, with the increased numbers, is increased die-offs. Now, what they think happened this year, normally they wouldn't be found in the Sound. If everybody remembers the program I did and I ended on the beach and they were there were tens of thousands of them right off of our beach, that was too late in the year for them to be there. Normally, they would have migrated out and they go down to the Chesapeake Bay to spawn. That's where they spawn. And then they go up to the Gulf of Maine, and then they go back and forth. They stop off here in Long Island Sound for some food, but then they continue on to the Chesapeake Bay. What they think happened is it was so warm that they stayed in the Sound, and then it got cold, and we had a die-off. It is not a major die-off. If you think the millions of fish that were here in the sound and the numbers that we're seeing are hundreds, it's not a big impact to their environment or to their population. But they think that that's why we're getting, and they're calling these small fish kills. So they are calling it a fish kill. But Bill Lucy and the fisheries biologist, which also I can't think of his name right now, I will remember it as soon as I get off the phone with you guys, off the program. Okay, so back to our carton. And remember, the carton is coated in a plastic, so it lasts a little bit longer, actually a lot longer. So you go from a couple of months for a cardboard box or just a regular cardboard to 5 years. 5 years for a carton because it's coated in wax. Now remember, it's an aerobic process for the most time, biodegrading. The moisture can't get in, the air can't get in, so it takes a lot longer for it to break down. It will break down. It just takes much, much longer. So we'll have to see if we can find a number in a marine environment for that one. All right, I've got a couple more. So the 2x4, we actually use the 2x4s for weights when we're doing this program and it's really windy. We just have to, like this, I think normally the newspaper is attached to this. But I thought, how long would it take for this to rot or biodegrade? The number I found online was not for biodegrading and becoming, complete, but to rot. I was shocked how quick it is. 1 to 6 months for a 2x4 to rot. Now, this is not a pressure-treated 2x4. This is a 2x4 that you would build your house with. A house environment is not wet, so it's not going to be a problem. Don't think that your house is going to rot away because it's built with 2x4s. But 1 to 6 months, if you just leave this out in the yard or stick it out in the woods or whatever, 1 to 6 months for this to rot. I was really surprised by that. All right, what else do we have? Aluminum foil. I have some aluminum foil. It's on the list here. Aluminum foil, and this is going to be just land. So aluminum foil on land. If you remember, the aluminum can was a couple of 100 years. Aluminum foil, faster, because it's thinner. It's only 100 years. But this is something that can be recycled, and you don't have to clean it. You don't have to wash your aluminum foil to recycle it. Obviously, you don't want to leave all of your food in it. Shake it out a little bit, but they're just melting it down, and all of the material, the excess, the dirt that's in there is going to separate out as slag or just be burned away. So good thing, 100 years. So it's a good thing to recycle that. All right, the last one we have, plastic 6-pack rings, okay? Now, a few years ago, I thought that they were really doing away with these. You weren't finding them anymore. I'm starting to see them again. And what I'm seeing, let's see if this one has it, if this is an old one. This is an old one. What they've been doing is they put these little dotted lines that make them break away so that they break down faster. Or they break if an animal gets stuck in it, the animal can break out of it. This one doesn't have that because it's an older one. But I'm really surprised that these are on the uptake as far as the production of these. Now, they will break down a little bit faster in a marine environment than in a landfill. Let's see, is that 300 years for this? I'm not sure, but it's actually pretty close. These are 350 years in a landfill. Sorry, 450 years. 450 years in a landfill, 400 years in a marine environment. So, unfortunately, they can't be recycled. So when you throw these away, make sure you cut them. Even if they have that breakaway thing, I just think better just snip them away, and then you can throw it away. Susan says she always cuts them before throwing them away. I'm sorry I depressed everybody in the holiday season, because now everybody's going to be using a lot of paper and products for their presents. And I actually have to leave with the last thing I have is pretty lousy news too. So the last bit of information that I have, I heard this last week. I haven't been able to confirm it on a scientific. So when I see a news article or hear something on the radio, I always want to look it up and find the actual study or research that confirmed it. So this is something that I haven't been able to look up yet, but we have produced, human beings have now produced, there is more mass of things that we have produced than biomass, or the mass of living things in our world. Think about that. We've produced more mass than there is biomass in the world. That is pretty sad. So we need to turn that around, and we can turn that around. We need less things. We need to recycle more things, but it's a good idea. All right. Walton says that there was just a group discussion. Let's see, about using reusable cloth bags or pieces of cloth, decorative boxes, and then saving them year after year to wrap presents. That's an interesting thought. I like that. If you just wrap your presents in pieces of cloth, they can be colorful. I always like to wrap my, some of my family members don't like it so much, but I like to wrap my presents in something that is going to be recycled anyway, like newspaper or a brown paper bag. And then you can write all over it. So a brown paper bag, you can write on it. You can write messages to the person. So there are alternatives out there. Christmas wrapping paper is not recyclable, unfortunately. So for the most part, I have seen a few out there that claim to be, but for the most part, not recyclable either. So please find alternatives to your wrapping paper. Thank you for all the info. We are wasteful. All right, so thank you all for tuning in. I hope that you guys are really enjoying these programs. I have a great time doing them. I did learn a little bit when I was putting this program together. I was kind of excited to try and find something new. So I did find that 2x4 brand new to me and never heard that before. So that's interesting. I can't believe it could be just a month and the 2x4 could be rotting. So please continue to tune in and watch these programs Tuesday through Friday at 11. Remember, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I am going to be off, probably New Year's Eve too. We'll see. I've got some time I need to use up by the first of the year, so we're going to do that. But I will still, if I find something interesting out there, I'll stop and film it and go live for you all. So keep an eye out on the feed. You never know when I'm going to find something. Tomorrow, I'll probably be plowing snow here at the park. Keep trying to keep it open so that we can open up as soon as the snow stops and we get our roads clear. We'll be able to open the park. The park will be closed until it's all plowed out, though. So please don't try and come down. So I guess the snow may not start. I don't know when it's going to start, but I will also stop and do a program at some point tomorrow. I'm going to target 11 o'clock for that. Maybe we can do some tracking in the snow, see what we can find out there. But look for that tomorrow. We'll do some snow programs, probably another snow program on Friday. And Please reuse your bags. Use recyclable bags, reusable bags. If you forget your bag, go back out to the car and get it, or you have to carry everything in your arms. That's what I used to do to remind myself to carry the reusable bags with me. If I went and bought something, I'm like, nope, I'm not taking a bag. And this is before the ban. I would take it all in my arms and carry it out. And, you know, you look silly doing that. You embarrass yourself a few times. It's hard to embarrass me, but you do that a few times and you're going to remember your bag pretty quick. So you can also, I had a volunteer here a few years ago. She made these great little tags. It says, remember your bag. You could stick it on your dashboard or on your steering wheel. Everybody should have a note, something to remind them to reuse those bags. All right. Hopefully everybody is going to stay safe and indoors. Don't go anywhere for this storm. Now you've got the pandemic and a snowstorm. Lock yourselves inside. Hopefully you have plenty of food. And hopefully we don't lose power. But everyone stay safe tomorrow. And I will see you all then. Until then, this is Ranger Russ signing off from Meigs Point Nature Center.